There is a hut at the edge of the village. You don't go there as a child, but one day, when you're around 12 or 13, the older women come for you, and they take you to it. Nobody from the village will speak to you while you are inside. Nobody will come close. The men will pretend you do not exist, and you will not return for several days. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what ancient women used instead of pads, instead of tampons, the secret rules they had to follow. And the single most surprising thing about ancient periods, the thing nobody taught you, which completely changes the way you think about your own body. This is the half of history nobody bothered to write down. Let's get into it. Now, let's go back to that hut. The young girl is standing in front of it. She has never been inside. She doesn't know what's in there. She has heard whispers her entire childhood, that this place is dangerous, that it is sacred, that going in changes you. All of those things are true, and what she finds in there is not what you think it is. Before we go inside, let's answer the question every single person watching is asking. How did they actually deal with the blood? No pads, no tampons, no plumbing. So, how? In ancient Egypt, soft rolled papyrus, specifically softened by repeated soaking, surprisingly absorbent. In ancient Greece, natural sea sponges, reusable, naturally antibacterial, and, believe it or not, still sold today for the exact same purpose. In Northern Europe, a specific species of moss called sphagnum. Vikings used it, so did most Celtic and Germanic peoples. And here's the kicker. Sphagnum moss is naturally antiseptic and can absorb up to 20 times its weight in liquid. Across much of Africa, woven cloths and soft plant fibers, washed and reused for years. In Native American cultures, soft buckskin leather and cattail down. Here's what I want you to notice. Every single one of these cultures, separated by oceans, by thousands of years, by every possible difference, independently figured out the same thing. Soft, absorbent, reusable. The solutions looked different. The principle was identical. And every single one of those solutions was figured out by women, tested by women, improved by women, passed down by women. None of it was ever written in any history book you read in school, and nobody felt the need to teach you about it. Why? Because the men writing those books were embarrassed. Okay, now we go back to the hut, because the practical stuff is the easy part. The interesting part is what happened socially. Now we go inside, with her, for the first time. And what she finds in there is not a place of punishment, not a place of shame. It is the most relaxed group of women she has ever seen in her life. Here's what the history books never told you. The menstrual hut wasn't exile, it was vacation. For most of human history, in most of the world, when a woman was on her period, she was excused from cooking, cleaning, farming, fetching water, caring for children, serving men, and most other forms of work. She went to the hut. She rested. She talked with other women. She ate food prepared for her. For some women, particularly those with hard lives, these were the best days of the month. In some cultures, men were so jealous of this monthly rest that there are documented anthropological cases of men attempting to fake menstruation to access the same break from work. They failed. The women noticed. They were not amused. Inside the hut, the older women would teach about bodies, about sex, about birth, about how to read men, about which herbs to take, which to avoid, about what to expect from the rest of her life as a woman. The hut was the school nobody ever wrote down. This is how every generation of women learned to be women. Not from books, not from doctors, but from other women in a hut at the edge of the village. And by the end of her first day, the young girl is smiling. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, there were rules, and the rules were strange. Menstruating women in most ancient cultures were forbidden from cooking food for men, forbidden from touching weapons, forbidden from entering certain temples, forbidden from looking at male hunters before they left for the hunt. In some cultures, forbidden from speaking with men at all during her cycle. Now, when you read those rules in a modern history book, here's how they're framed. Women were considered unclean during menstruation, and so were excluded from sacred spaces. That is what every textbook says. That is what most people believe. And it is completely, fundamentally, embarrassingly wrong. Menstruating women weren't excluded from those spaces because they were too unclean. They were excluded because they were too powerful. In many cultures, menstrual blood was believed to be more powerful than the magic in weapons, so it would corrupt them, ruin them, render them useless. Not because the blood was dirty, but because it was stronger than the weapon. She couldn't enter the male temples because she'd overpower the male spiritual energy inside. The priests would lose their magic, the gods would be displaced, and in many cultures, Native American, parts of West Africa, ancient Japan, parts of India, menstruation wasn't isolated at all. It was celebrated. The young girl's first period was marked with feasts, gifts, ceremonies. She was treated in some traditions like royalty for the week. There are surviving statues, actual statues, in museums right now, of menstruating goddesses being worshipped. So let's go back to the hut, the same hut we started with. In the opening, I told you this place was dangerous, that it was sacred, that going in changes you. All of those things were true. They just didn't mean what you thought they meant. Dangerous, because what happened inside it threatened male authority. Sacred, because the women inside had access to something men did not. Changing you, because the girl who walked in came out understanding what it meant to be a woman. And every generation of women, for tens of thousands of years, did this. Walked into that hut as a girl, walked out a few days later understanding who she was. Your great-great-grandmother, her grandmother, hers, all the way back. They all knew this. Every woman who came before you, and nobody bothered to tell you about it. Which raises an obvious question. If ancient cultures didn't think periods were shameful, when did we start? Because period shame is real. It exists. Most women watching this can probably name the moment they first felt embarrassed about their body during their period. So if it isn't ancient, where did it come from? Here's where it should make you angry. Period shame is barely 150 years old. It's Victorian. It was invented, and that's the right word, invented, by male medical authorities in 1800s Europe, who decided that menstruation was a medical disorder that respectable women should hide, never discuss, and feel embarrassed about. Before that, in most of the world, periods were just periods. After that, they became a secret. They wrote books. They printed pamphlets. They told women to hide every trace of their cycle. They labeled menstruation a sickness. They invented the modern word feminine hygiene as if a woman's body were dirty by default. And it worked. It worked so well that within 2 generations, the entire Western world had forgotten that this used to be normal. And then it spread. Through colonization, through missionary schools, through textbooks, through advertising, until cultures that had celebrated menstruation for thousands of years started hiding it. Until the menstrual hut, the most relaxed place in the village, became a thing to be embarrassed about. If you grew up feeling embarrassed about your period, that didn't come from your ancestors. Your ancestors weren't embarrassed. That came from a small group of men, in suits, in offices in London and Paris and Boston, who decided they had the authority to tell women how to feel about their own bodies. And we just believed them. There are still places, in parts of West Africa, in parts of India, in some Native American communities, where the menstrual hut tradition continues, where the young girl is still welcomed in, where the older women still teach, where the rest is still honored. The history books don't write about those places either. There is a hut at the edge of the village. It was never a place of shame. It was a place of rest, of teaching, of sisterhood, of power. And the people who told you otherwise, they were lying. That's the half of history nobody bothered to write down. And I'm going to keep telling it. Next video. What ancient women used for makeup. And some of it was literally poisonous. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm telling the stories nobody wrote down. See you in the next one.